Who's ready to talk about another loss? I am. Shit is so annoying, man. I don't know. Hey, we'll get into it. Let's talk Knicks, episode 442. Welcome to BD4, an RJ Carbone podcast. BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. BD4 is a 5-star show on Apple Podcasts, also available in video format on YouTube and Spotify. So thanks for stopping by, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Champion of the world, turning, looking, see ya! Anthony for three, bang! That one goes down, and the game is tied! Time!
Penetrates, creates, and showing some dexterity as well with the left hand.
Yankees win!
All right, welcome to the show, episode 442. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. Damn it. And this is episode 442. I just said that. Welcome to BD4. You know all that stuff. I'll save you. I'll spare you. The Knicks lost again last night, and they fell to 9-11 on the season. They lost to Memphis, the Grizzlies, 127-123 at Madison Square Garden. And with that loss, they now are finished playing the Grizzlies for the year. They went 0-2. You know, they competed in both games. The one on opening night went to overtime. And last night, they showed some great fight as well. But, oh boy, am I so not doing that. Like, I am so over the moral victory garbage. It sucks, because the Knicks did everything right offensively, it felt like. I mean, you'd think in a game, at least where the Knicks dished out a very respectable 30 assists and only had 8 turnovers, you think, that'd be good enough for a win. That was probably the best ratio they'll see all season. Still, they lose. And why? A few things. Well, first off, as we keep saying, another day without a superstar. Meanwhile, Morant drops a very casual 27-14-10 last night. The Knicks also continued to struggle from three-point distance. They were 33% last night, which for them is better, but there were also some droughts in there. But most importantly, it was also another day where the Knicks surrender 120-something points. That is now 6 times this season where they've allowed that many, 120 plus. And most of that has been lately. Just pathetic. They came out looking strong. I mean, they had tons of energy in the first quarter. The offense was generating great looks. RJ and Quickly had a couple of baskets each in the first quarter. The defense played with a lot of effort. The Knicks went up 1 point after the opening frame. Second quarter was more the same. The offense was moving, a lot of great cuts and feeds. The defense stayed strong and kept improving even. RJ stayed hot. Randle got it going in the second. Grimes checks in, and he's moving off the ball and setting good screens up top. Cam is doing his thing. The Knicks go into halftime down by just 2 points. But they were a very repulsive 3 for 16 from deep at the time. So the three-point shooting continues to haunt the Knicks. It's something that's, I guess they just don't have the personnel. But there are guys on this roster who are supposed to be better than what they've been so far from 3 and aren't doing that yet. But they shoot 19% from 3 in the first half. But the second half, I will say, the shooting did improve. But you guessed it, as the shooting improved in the second half, the defense dropped off. The third quarter of doom strikes once again, as the Knicks They scored enough in the period. They just simply didn't D up enough. They were a step slow in the paint. The Grizzlies just kept using their speed and their extra high tempo pace to get into the paint and pace the Knicks out the damn gym. The Knicks go into the fourth down 10 points all of a sudden and needing a sizable comeback. And the fourth quarter defense wasn't much better. The offense was actually the best it had been for the majority of the fourth quarter. But it doesn't matter when you defend like a traffic cone in the middle of NYC. Paint troubles once again. They were fighting, though. I'll give you that. They were playing hard defensively. Mitch was hustling his ass off down low. Cam came through with 2 very crucial baskets on the other end. Brunson was phenomenal for most of the quarter on offense. He scored 17 of his 30 points in the period. But again, it wasn't enough because Morant is simply the best. He was simply the best basketball player on the floor last night. Because he is what, folks? A superstar. And the Knicks are unfamiliar with that term. They don't have one. Morant was knocking down jumpers. He was getting to the rim, getting to the line. The Knicks couldn't guard him. They had trouble guarding him. They were afraid to guard him tight because of the whistles he was getting. They were playing too loose on the perimeter because he's such a threat in dribble penetration. They wanted to make sure they could shut the drive down. But they'd even back off him when he did attack because they were afraid that he'd generate contact. Like that one possession where Morant ended up rebounding his own miss because both Robinson and Barrett backed off of him right underneath the basket. That, to me, was the turning point of the fourth quarter there. It was about 13 seconds left, and the Knicks were up 1 point after RJ had knocked down a pair of free throws. But they botched that defensive sequence big time there. You had Cam losing Morant on a cut. Morant does that 360 acrobatic shit, misses the layup because he's blocked by Mitchell Robinson. But as soon as that happened, they both immediately back off, and boom, Morant grabs the board, and he has enough space to put it right back in. And from there, the final 13 seconds, the Knicks did not score again, and it just completely changed momentum because right after that, Jalen Brunson had his 2 humongous opportunities to be the hero. And unfortunately, that could not happen. You remember a couple days ago, he couldn't cash in versus Portland. Big shot in the final seconds. And then last night, he gets 2 really big opportunities. One of them where the Knicks were down 1 point with just under 10 seconds left. Brunson crosses up whoever the kid who was playing in for Bane, who was hurt. Conchar, he crosses him up, and he gets a good pull-up look in the mid-range, but he misses. And then the second one was when the Knicks were down 2 points with 1.6 seconds remaining. Brunson lets go of a floater, but it doesn't drop. And so the Knicks lose. They lose, and we will be right back to talk about it. And as I've said, we have a lot to get to. So stay with us, and we'll be right back. Hey guys, so if you are a listener of the podcast often, and you want to know where to find me on social media, you can find me on Facebook at BD4. You can find me on Twitter at BD4Pod. And you can also find me on Instagram at RobJCarbone. All right, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. Episode 442 of the podcast. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, that last shot of the game, the final shot. Now, I was fine with the first one that Brunson took. I was fine with that. I thought he was open enough. He was able to create his own look. It just simply didn't fall. But I hated that final shot by him. And it wasn't so much Brunson as it is Thibodeau's fourth quarter offense. Because we know Thibs is not the most creative X's and O's coach. I get that. He's not here for offense. But the defensive part ain't even working. But it's just very frustrating seeing the same predictable isolation set being ran under Thibs in those final seconds. Where 4 guys are spread outside the arc and one guy, usually Brunson now, just goes 1v1. Right? Used to be Randle, but it's just give it to Brunson and pray. We're doing that instead of trying to execute an actual game plan. Right? Maybe work a pick and roll. Use a ball screen to get into the lane. Even work a pick and pop with Randle. Because, I don't mind Randle taking the final shot if it's a spot-up look and he's not on the ball trying to do all this point-forward shit. That's where I have a problem with him taking that shot in the final seconds. But if you're setting him up, either getting him to cut to the rim or spotting him up in a pick and pop, I'm fine with that. I don't know. I just feel like we can do better than 1v1. Draw something up, design a set for those moments so we can go into it knowing what we're going to do, even if it's not in an ATO, right? Even if we don't call a timeout, we don't have a timeout left or whatever. Plan something for those moments so we can do something there. That said, Brunson was still magnificent last night. I don't want to get that twisted. And he gets a Bing Bong award from me.
Bing bang.
He wins another Bing Bong ball. I believe that's his, 13th on the year? Which, through 20 games, pretty impressive. 30 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists, 1 steal. Just 2 turnovers on the night for Jalen Brunson. And remember, he came into this game with, he was questionable. But he's a tough kid. He played through that thigh injury. And ended up producing his third or fourth consecutive 30-point game. I think it was his third. It's funny, you don't see Brunson going 2 for 15 out there when he's not 100%. I'm just saying, for all the Barrett apologists and excuse makers in this new, trophy generation, we've got to stop that shit. If you're out there, you're going to be evaluated. You're going to be held accountable. Brunson was near perfect. He was perfect up until the final seconds. He was playmaking. He was scoring. He even rebounded a little bit last night. His ability to, we say this all the time, get into the paint is everything we'd be needing from point guard. We didn't get that with Burks. Kemba, obviously, didn't have the knees left. It's just so impressive and so refreshing to see. He's just very good. Brunson is at going downhill and using both his footwork and soft touch at the rim as he was doing last night. It's also impressive to see a guy of his size be able to be so capable in post-up. We saw him take Morant there a few times. And he gets to the line a shit ton. 6 times a game. Last night he got there 11 times. So I just think maybe late in the game we can get him initiating some sets and use him out there with maybe Cam or Grimes. So when the defense collapses on Brunson's drives, he's got 2 of those guys to use as kick-out options, right? Be a little less predictable. And now the Grizzlies, and other teams for that matter, with legitimate number 1 options, superstars, they're allowed to be a little predictable in those moments, right? They are allowed to. Like the Knicks knew Ja Morant was getting the ball down the stretch there, sure. But he's a superstar. It doesn't matter. Jalen Brunson is decent. He's good. He's their closer, but he's also not a 30 points per game megastar either. But still, again, all in all, it was another very solid effort from the kid. He's been a game changer for the Knicks. As I have said, he's the Aaron Judge of the Knicks. Without him, the Knicks are, 5-15, maybe even 4-16, instead of 9-11. The last 4 games, Brunson has been on fire, and the Knicks are still just 1-3 during that span. What does that tell you? So, hopefully he's okay. Again, he battled through an injury and played, so hopefully he's healthy and doesn't miss any time. And if he does miss time, the season might start going down the drain, and we might start hearing that the T word again. I mean, we hear that after every loss anyway. But I also thought RJ Barrett bounced back. It was another bounce back from his other bounce back the other night. 22 points for RJ, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, shot 9 for 17, 2 of 6 from 3, and made both of his free throws down the stretch there. Yeah, excellent production offensively last night. Very aggressive, efficient, running the break, the early hot start, got the confidence going. That's always key. It was one of those games that drives you crazy because you saw him finish so well. His touch at the rim last night was tremendous with those floaters and those difficult layups a couple of times through traffic. He just looked very, very composed at the rim. And it frustrates you because you think of all the other games where he looks like he has the worst touch in human history at the rim. But last night it was on. And he also knocked down a three-pointer early fourth quarter to cut the deficit from 7 to 3. I thought that was big. Or 7 to 4. But yeah, this was one of those games where, I appreciate. But if I'm going to be fair, because I said it last episode when he had a bad game, RJ's, to me, he's not as good as he is when he's on, like last night. But he's also not as bad as he is when he's off, like the nights prior to. He's probably just going to be somewhere in between that, right? He's a decent, okay player. That's just my opinion. He could get better, and way better, and I don't know. But I will say, as great as he was last night, about the three-point shooting, at some point, we have to realize he's not a knockdown shooter. Like, we've got to stop setting him up and feeding him these spot-up threes as often as we do. Because we always see him out there spotting up, and we try to get him to the ball when he's open. But he's open for a reason. He's not open because the defense made a mistake. So we can't be doing this. We have to get him, we got to cut that in half. Right now he's averaging 6 3-pointers a game. We got to try and cut that in half. He can't be out there chucking up 6, 7, 8 3-pointers sometimes. For a guy who's probably going to live anywhere in the 30-35% range, we can't have him shooting that many. He should be taking 2, 3, maybe 4 sometimes tops. Throw him in his bread and butter area. Play him in his niche. Get him going downhill more often. Use the bully ball. Cut him to the basket off the ball. Have him receive those dribble handoffs where he curls around those screens and attacks the hoop with the ball. He likes that. Let him work on his strengths because his strengths aren't exactly top-notch yet either. But it's why he's in the league. So let him improve on that. And, at some point, I think we got to call a spade, and realize he's never going to be Klay Thompson. You're in year 4. You should have a good idea of what works for you at this point and what does not work for you. And at this point, you should know your limits. Model your game, your archetype after, D. Wade, Manu Ginobili, Brandon Roy, I think is a fit comparison for RJ, right? Or watch the way your teammate Quentin Grimes plays, when he's not having the ball. It's just things like that frustrate me. He's also, of course, he has these games where he's not finishing well and he's forcing it down there. He's forcing drives and he's got to improve the tunnel vision. So it just comes down to decision making with RJ a lot, right? Use that playmaking more, and to his credit, last night he did. He chose the right times when to attack the lanes and the right times to make that pass. I thought in the first quarter, RJ had a nice feed to Brunson on the break. Instead of driving into 2 defenders right in front of him at the top of the key there, he swung it to his right to Brunson for that elbow 3. He had that really nice pass in transition later in the game where the ball was just flying out of everybody's hands in a split second. It was like Mitch gets the board, throws to Brunson, to RJ, to Julius. It was like 5-second zigzag transition play. That was a good play. The fourth quarter, he fed Mitch on that lob coming off double screens. And then he had that skip pass to Obi Toppin when he attacked from the baseline going to the opposite corner. So he had some nice playmaking possessions. And you just hope that he can continue to build on that. But I thought he was good, and I'm just not trying to treat him with kid gloves anymore. You know, it's again year 4. He's 22-year-old. He's a 22-year-old man. He's making the big bucks now too. So all in all, I thought it was a very strong effort from RJ. Just needs some consistency, and we'll see where it leads. Randle, 14 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, 1 turnover, 4 of 9 shooting, 1 of 5 from 3, 5 of 6 at the line. I liked his performance. I liked it. I appreciate that Randle didn't force it. It was one of his better all-around performances of the year. He made smart passes and took open shots. And he set his teammates up by getting into the lanes and kicking out. He also deferred to Brunson late, which was a good sign to see. And, maybe the fact that he took less shots and had the ball less is why, that assist to turnover rate was so strong last night, 9-1. So I'm going to give him credit for all that. And I don't want to harp on too much of the bad stuff that I'm about to talk about and nitpick the fuck out of him. But I at the same time, I feel like I have to call out things that I don't like, man. And I'm sorry, there was some more, I guess we'll call it more Randle stuff in there last night. Hold on. Sorry. I still think there were a little too many jump shots. He took 5 threes. He only made 1. He took 6 jumpers overall of the 9 attempts. There was also a lot of ISO on the perimeter. I wish he'd just play off the ball more often. We know that. It's like, dude, you're 6'8", 260. I just wish he'd use that bruiser of a body he's got. I know Jackson has length, so maybe he wanted to avoid going down low more. But there were times where he had the mismatch on him and Brandon Clark. But the offense was fine. It's usually the defense with me, and just the usual last night, getting sleepy at times, losing his man on the glass too often, getting beat back door last night again, not making the simple effort to make the next rotation over or to close out on the arc. And there was that one play that stood out to me last night where it was so brutal. I wanted to scream and cuss at the top of my lungs. And I would have if my parents hadn't been in the other room watching Yellowstone, which was very good last night. But it was a possession where, I forget who it was, but you had Randle and 2 other Knicks standing there right on the baseline, closer to the basket. And whoever it was for Memphis was in the corner. Those 3 Knicks were staring at the open by friggin' 10 feet Grizzlies guy, and he takes his time and he shoots a 3. I don't remember who it was. I don't remember if it even went in, but it just bothered me because nobody bothered to go over there and close out. And I'm singling out Randle because this is an often thing with him. And again, overall, I thought he was fine. I had no big issues with his play, but at the same time, we are going over a game here and where the Knicks allowed 127 points. So that bad defense obviously had to come from somewhere, and last night Randle was one of the culprits on that end, as he unfortunately is so often. It's little defensive mishaps like that make such a dramatic difference in a close game, especially when it's just simply effort, right? Speaking of effort, Mitchell Robinson's effort last night, maybe his best game of the season. 16 points, 7 rebounds, 5 blocks, 6 of 7 from the floor, 4 of 7 from the free throw, and he was a +2 across 32 minutes played. Steven Adams is a tough assignment. He's strong, he's bulky, and so is John Morant's obviously a tough assignment too, for that matter. So Mitch put in a hell of an effort against those 2 guys. You just saw from him last night a ton of hustle, a ton of energy, constantly working out there, whether it was in the paint, on the glass or out on the perimeter, I thought he was great. I thought he was pretty disciplined and poised in terms of staying on his feet and not biting on those fakes. Yes, he had 4 fouls, but the majority of his foul woes came late in the game in the fourth quarter. He played most of this game very clean. But yeah, he was stopping players from driving, and he was altering shots at the rim, which honestly needs to become an analytic metric because I feel like Mitch would be up there in that stat, altering shots. But he kept the Knicks alive on the offensive glass. 4 of his 7 rebounds were on the offensive end. And that's his forte. That's his game, right? At the end of the first half, we saw him battling that loose rebound with Stevens, and he ends up with it. And also in the fourth quarter, where the Knicks were down 8 points, Brunson misses that runner. Mitch grabs the board in traffic, and he was fouled. He knocks down one of the 2 free throws. So he was working hard on the offensive glass. Still struggles on the defensive glass, though, and that was a thing last night. It was a big problem for the Knicks. Memphis was just killing it on the offensive glass in certain points. And again, Steven Adams is a huge, strong dude, probably the strongest guy in the NBA. Mitch, simply not that strong. And he needs to work on things like boxing out. I thought that was very evident last night. He struggled with that big time, unfortunately. Adams is also just an offensive rebounding machine. And Mitch not being great on the defensive glass, that's a bad combination. It could have been aided, though. We could have done something about it. Had Thibodeau went to Jericho for more than 0 minutes last night. I want to talk about that. I got some things to obviously say on Jericho, Sims, and Thibs. As soon as we get back from break, stay with us. We'll be right there. BD4 is located on many different platforms. You can listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, and if you do there, be sure to give us a 5-star rating and review. You can listen to it on Spotify, but you can also watch the podcast on both Spotify and YouTube. BD4 is available on many other platforms as well. All you got to do is search it up. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and much more. All right, welcome back to the show. Listen, at some point, Thibs is going to have to make the switch, and it's got to be soon. You would have thought that going up against Memphis and their, style of downhill play, that Sims would have played a factor last night. No. Isaiah Hartenstein ended up playing 15 minutes, and Sims picked up a DNP. Hartenstein, again, just isn't great defensively. First off, he can't recover quick enough because he doesn't have as much athleticism and lateral movement like Jericho does. Seeing him in drop coverage is painful to watch. He's unable to defend the rim. He committed that and one foul on Clark last night. Guys are just going right through him at the basket. He runs like he's on his tippy toes. He clearly doesn't have the agility. Why does he keep playing? I know, because he hustles, right? Have you ever seen Sims play out there? The kid busts his ass. He's an athletic freak of nature who runs the floor like a guard. And don't tell me it's the offense. Hartenstein gives you a different look offensively. I mean, it's not like he's Dirk. I get it. He provides a little more spacing. Airballed a nice 3 last night. But he's got that floater. But what happens when the floater is off? Like last night, the floater wasn't there. He's just a liability because he isn't providing you with much else. So the real reason why he's playing still, I think, is just politics. That's why he plays. I think the Knicks are playing him because they're paying him $16 million. They should have never made that signing. I questioned it right away. I couldn't believe it. After seeing what Sims showed you at the end of last season, that he wouldn't even be given a fair shot to be the backup big. And he's been even better this year, but it doesn't matter. I would try moving Hartenstein at some point. I think you got to move him off. Sims actually has the Knicks, I looked it up last night, second best. He has the second best player efficiency rating on the team. Brunson's first, and then Sims comes in second with a 19 PER. You got to play the kid. He plays defense. He can move. He can set screens. He opens things up for you. Let's get to our second Bing Bong ball, which is going off the bench to Cam Reddish.
Bing bang.
I thought he was great. Cam Reddish last night, 11 points, 2 assists, a steal, no turnovers, 4 for 6 from the field, 1 of 2 from the three-point line, 100%, 2 of 2 at the free throw line. It's his third Bing Bong ball of the year. He was a +4 last night to lead the team. Again, just watching him weaving into the paint and finishing around traffic. Just so fascinating to watch him do that. Just get to the basket and finish like he can. It's impressive. It really is. He's knocking down the three-point pretty well. He did both of that in the fourth quarter last night. 2 big baskets. 1 from 3, 1 he got to the basket. He was making good decisions with the ball all night. Was making that extra swing pass on the perimeter. He did nice defensively again, though he had trouble, with fouls at points of this one. His long arms are always helpful, and last night we saw that again. He picked up the tech on Dylan Brooks after that dust-up between them, but right afterwards, he pokes it loose from LaRavia, and then he outsprints Tyus Johnson in transition past half court, grabs the ball, and it leads to 2 free throws. So, defensively, he was good. A lot of switching when he was tasked with Morant last night. A lot of times you saw Brunson go to him in that second half, but it was mostly Grimes and Mitch on Morant, and they did an excellent job, especially in the first half. Grimes in the point of attack, Mitch rotating out and then having to recover back down low. It was good, but all in all, from Cam Reddish, good defense from him last night, and another good offensive input, showing no signs of rust in his first game back. I'm very, very curious now to see what this guard wing rotation will look like. Will it? Because it's like they're both back. So is Grimes going to remain in the starting lineup now? Or will Cam eventually go back in there soon? I know Thibs and the front office values Quentin Grimes a lot. He's their guy. They kept him out of the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes. But do you think it's fair that Cam loses his starting spot, which he had earned, just because he hurt his ankle for a couple games? I like Grimes a lot. To me, though, right now, it just makes more sense for Grimes to find his footing off the bench, because he's still searching for his shot. I mean, for as well as he's played, his main strength for the Knicks offensively, we still haven't seen yet. He is 23% on the year from 3, and he's just 18% since returning to the starting lineup. Meanwhile, Cam has now scored in double figures in 5 consecutive games. Cam is starting to give me the same kind of vibes I get when Obi comes onto the floor. When Obi checks in, you feel like good things are about to happen. And they usually do. I'm starting to get that with Cam. Now, maybe you could say that Grimes is the smarter defensive player, is the better defender. He's able to work over screens quicker, and he moves better with the smaller, more traditional guards. But I do like Cam's size and length against those true wings. So I think with Cam's offensive consistency that he's hopefully maybe starting to find now, and his defensive versatility, I think I want him starting. I do love the Cam Grimes lineups that we get, though. The two-way potential that has got is positive. But yeah, both of them did play 20-plus minutes last night, so it worked, yes, but we also have to remember that was with Emmanuel Quickly getting injured. Quickly ended up playing only 9 minutes before leaving the game. So we know, D-Rose returned last night, and he was playing over Deuce, So I mean, the Knicks ran 11 men out there at the end of the first quarter. I thought Deuce was going to be a part of the game, but he was just situational. So it looks like Rose is going to keep his spot over Deuce. I mean, that was confirmed last night in D Rose's return, but we knew that. As little hope as I have there for Deuce, it sucks because I want to see him play. But unfortunately, it seems like it's going to be Hartenstein getting the bulk of the backup minutes at the 5 over Jericho. But when IQ is back, it's going to be very interesting to see how Thibs' minutes distribution works. Because everybody else in the rotation last night got their normal minutes. Everybody else. Thibs ran 10 men out there, and they all got their usual burn. So that's why I would try moving Derrick Rose's contract. Sure, do we lose that tertiary point guard? Yeah. But remember, Quentin Grimes, and this is something I want to take back what I said last episode or a couple of episodes ago, he can actually make some plays on the ball. I'm not just talking about his assist numbers of late, which have been good. 8 assists against the Suns. Only 1 against OKC, but he had 5 against Portland and then 4 last night against Memphis. But this is also a kid who I completely forgot has been a point guard his entire life. He played point guard up until he went to play college ball at Houston. So he can play on the ball. I think if you eventually move Rose or you reduce his role even more, but I don't know. I mean, he's not even getting a ton of minutes already. I think it's just smarter to move him because I feel like Rose is so respected in this league. If Thibs got a ton of criticism from benching Kemba Walker, which I thought was ridiculous, the criticism he got last year, if he does it with Rose, who's still very productive, I don't think it's going to go well to the media, and it might just cause a shitstorm. It shouldn't have to be where we worry about the optics and everything, but that's just how the league works. I would try to just move him. And again, if you need to stagger Quickly, because Quickly plays better when he's off the ball and doesn't have to primarily play make. If you got to stagger him with Brunson, give him more minutes with Brunson, you do that, and then you have him with Grimes the other moments. But at the end of the day, I just want what's best for this offense. I want to get the best out of the offense, and I feel like we could be getting a lot more from them. So I think that rotation is going to be interesting if Quickly's back next game. It really is. I feel like there's more with this offense. They've been good this year, but there's still, obviously the shooting. The spacing is still too clunky for me, and that a lot has to do with the starting lineup with Barrett and Randle together. They are a tandem that just doesn't seem fit for each other. It just doesn't seem to work. There's too much ISO, too much guys going into the paint. It's not enough offense within the flow of the game sometimes. Not enough cutting off the ball there. When RJ is off, he presses and forces his drives. And when Randle is off, he's forcing heat check threes. When he's on, sorry. Or when he thinks he's on. It just feels like it's way too much your turn, my turn type with them. And they're also not very good defensively. There was a stat I heard last night when listening to a podcast. I don't remember the specific numbers, but I do remember hearing this. The Knicks' net rating when RJ is on the floor without Randle is positive. It's also positive when Randle's on the floor without RJ. But when both of them share the floor together, it's a negative net rating. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was like that last year, the year before, and the year before that. But this year, I feel like you already have Brunson, who's going to be on the ball, taking the point guard duties. And you have two other guys who now want it. It's just not a great mix. It leads to poor efficiency. So you could try staggering them a little more, but I think eventually the Knicks might have to make a decision on who you want to keep around. Moving Randle, if you can, would be great. But I just don't have a feeling he's going to be moved. His contract just started, and I don't know. But I just, the spacing, we don't get the best out of Cam Reddish, I feel like, because when Cam is on the floor with those two, he doesn't get a lot of looks. too many possessions go by where he doesn't touch the ball, even if he's rolling. I think if we set Cam up in some ISOs and feed him off cuts, he could be pretty good and effective. But I don't know. I'm talking offense when the Knicks gave up 130-something points last night, or 127. That was the real issue. So, unfortunate. Another loss. The Knicks couldn't defend the paint as I expected. And so, that's it. We'll take a break, come back, and we'll wrap this show up. Stay with us. Be right there. We also have a website now for BD4. If you go to BD4blog.com, you can find the blog, the podcast links, and also where to find me on social media. Just go to BD4blog.com. Studio 69 Productions is a podcast production agency created by Leo Rodriguez to allow content creators to market their podcast. It's an online platform that will market your podcast or any other project that you're working on. Get in touch with Leo Rodriguez from Studio 69 Productions. You can find Studio 69 Productions on Instagram at Studio69NJ. Studio 69 Productions, where dreams are heard and born. All right, welcome back to the show. Episode 442 of the podcast. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. We'll wrap it up here with our NYY-NYK-MMA trivia question of the day. True or false? On top of being a 7-time All-Star, Walt Frazier was 7-time All-Defense. True or false? On top of being a 7-time All-Star, Walt Frazier was 7-time All-Defense. Let me know the answer wherever you can reach me. One final time. True or false? On top of being a 7-time All-Star, Walt Frazier was 7-time All-Defense. All right, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you for stopping by, and I will catch you in the next episode. Hopefully we're talking about a win against the Pistons, the shorthanded Pistons, on Tuesday night. All right, later. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.